today's session, it's going to be very important that we are sitting down with a pen and paper and notepad, because there's going to be various activities for you to do. What's extremely important for this session is for me. This is the intention that we should have. I'm not here in this session to learn how to fix my spouse. I'm not here in this session learning how to fix my kids, my in-laws, my neighbors, my siblings. No, this is my tarbiyah. Because this is our view that if I can fix myself, then the people around me will automatically become better. Or I will certainly have more tolerance for them, and I won't be offended or affected by whatever they do. And through my excellence in temperament, through my beautiful character, through my trustworthy character and behavior, I won't be causing any harm to anyone around me. And in fact, inshallah, I will be influencing others around me in a positive way. Okay, so that's just the second point. I'm here for myself. I'm not here for anyone else. Any points that are mentioned today, please think about yourself first. Do not think about your spouse. I don't want this session to be the cause of any issues between spouses after the session, inshallah. And thirdly, I think it's very important before we start, just to, again, rectify our intentions. Why am I here? I'm here to become a better person myself. I'm here to understand myself. I'm here to understand my weaknesses. I'm here to understand how do I make myself a better abd? How do I prepare myself before I meet my Rabb, before I go to the grave? And anything shared in the session will inshallah be for my benefit. And again, our teachers say whenever we attend any sessions, we should come like a model learner. So what's a model learner? A model learner is someone that comes with an empty cup, without any assumptions, without any expectations. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens the doors based on our intentions, our ikhlas, our sincerity. So the more sincere we are, the more we can benefit from the sessions. And again, sincerity comes back to, I'm here to fix myself. Ya Allah, I'm here. I'm going to be spending the next hour, an hour and a half, learning how to become a better person just to please you. Okay, so hopefully that's given everyone enough time to pick up the pens and papers. So this session is based on a session delivered by our teachers through an organization called ERDC. And it's essentially content from there, adapted from there, translated into English to help the English-speaking audience in particular, with some sort of, more relatable examples as well, inshallah. So I think, where shall we start from? So I think a good place to start with today's session is to ask your spouse a question. And what is the question? The question is the temperamental and the behavioral issues that I see in my kids. Do I have these issues in me? So that's the question we first need to ask our spouses. Or if you don't have a spouse, ask someone who knows you very well, who you are closely related to, who you have a good friendship with, that you have a good bond with. So what does this basically look like? So essentially now you will be making a list of the behavioral issues or the temperament issues that your kids have. So for example, this might look something like, my child is always in a hurry. So do I also appear to be in a hurry all the time? My child gets angry really quick. So am I also quick to get angry? My child gets upset very quick. So do I get upset quickly and easily? My child doesn't know how to listen to the word no. So that means he can't accept, he can't understand the word no. So is that a problem within me that I can't hear no as well? My child gets sad very quickly or is very sensitive and feels things very quickly. So do I have the same trait in me? So the first thing to do is list down a list of problems that you have with your child. Then share this list, show this list to your spouse, and ask your spouse, and spouses here have to be very honest, ask them, do these problems exist in me? So for example, if you note down 4 issues, or you note down some behaviors in your child, um, so what you'll say is, look, I have a list of these 4 things, my beloved wife. Do I display the same behaviors? Have you noticed me doing the same thing? And I want you to be really honest. The last 5, 10, 15, 20 years that we've been together, do you think I have these issues within me? Okay. And then if it's the husband asking the wife, then the wife needs to do the same with the husband. Okay. And again, the purpose of this is for me to understand my behaviors. So in this, we need to have a certain element of patience and acceptance. That if we're going to be given feedback, I need to be able to digest it and take it. It's not personal. Again, I'm here as a sincere learner to really understand what's going on in my life and in the life of my kids. Okay. So essentially, at the end of this exercise, you'll have 2 lists, one from the wife and the other one from the husband. Once we do this activity, and if we do it with honesty and transparency and sincerity, what you will discover is a lot of the behaviors that you are seeing in your child or in your children, they are actually transmitted. So there's a lot that transfers from within us to them. So just like cold and flu spreads from person to person, behaviors, anger, calmness, everything, all these behaviors and attitudes, they transmit from us into them. Okay. What's next? We should make a rule. What is this rule? This rule is anything which I observe in my kids. Okay. Anything which I observe in my kids, especially if it's a problem, then the first thing that I'm going to ask myself is, does this problem exist within me at any level? Right? This is the first question we need to ask. I mean, we see lots of parents observing their children, constantly getting agitated, frustrated. Why is my child like this? I need to change him. Did he pick up this behavior from school? Did he pick it up from a friend? Did he pick it up from his cousins? I'm going to stop my kids from going to this place. No, that's not what should come in our mind. The first question that comes in our mind is, that should come in my mind is, if there is a problem with my child, then has this problem been transferred from me into my child? Okay. So first of all, what we're doing is we're seeing the source of the problem and we're trying to identify the cause of the problem. Is it indirectly or directly from me? So this is the first thing we need to look into in depth, right? And we need to do an extremely strict analysis of ourselves here and our behaviors. And like I said, get support from someone who knows you well, who can answer this question for you. Okay. So this is the first list that we need to start off with. Now, I'm not saying here that any problem that occurs in children necessarily comes from us, that comes from me as a parent alone. Okay, it can come from society, it can come from company, it can come from your social circle, it can come from media exposure. All these play a part. But the fundamental behaviors, qualities, attitudes, mindset, sensitivities, in taking offense, how easily a person takes offense, anger, patience, all these behaviors, all these patterns are transmitted mainly from the parents. Okay, I mean, again, don't get me wrong. Parents can also become the source of goodness and good behaviors. But that's not the topic that we're trying to focus on here. Our focus, if we talk about anger and frustration, especially with kids, it's not because they're behaving well, it's because we have noticed an issue with their behavior which we're not happy with, right? We're troubled by our children's bad behavior. So we as parents have to understand that we as adults are a major source of influence, and in the context that we're speaking of now, problems in our children, and that is what needs addressing. Okay. So if I was to sort of summarize that in a nutshell, I would say something along the lines of we cannot be the source of evil which we may find in our children. Okay, so this is what this activity is trying to eliminate and clarify. So that's the first analysis that we do. Now, this activity that I've asked you to do, take some time out after today's session and review this individually in detail. Okay, so essentially it's like an independent review, an audit with your spouse to understand this topic in more detail. Now, moving on from parenting and focusing on anger. Okay, so this is the second activity which I'd like you to do. So in this activity, I'd like you to list down. In this activity, I'd like you to list down the situations or the issues which irritate you, which disturb you a lot, things which you take offense to, that you feel uncomfortable about. Okay, so this is the list now that we need to make. What is it that irritates me, annoys me? So maybe I'll give, because this is a slightly longer activity, I'll probably give you a minute or two just to make a list. And just leave some space on the right for an additional column next to it. So what are we writing down here? What are the situations or the issues that irritate you, they annoy you, they disturb you, they make you angry, they tick you off, you start feeling offended, right? You start feeling uncomfortable. So if we can just make a list of these points. And if we can just support each other, if there's questions being asked on the chat, I would be grateful if we could maybe share the questions on there as well, just to help the people who are joining in late. Okay, Jazakallah. Right. Now, what I'd like you to do is, next to each situation now that you've listed, write down what your usual response and action is to that situation. So for example, in the first column, you've written that these situations bother me. And by the way, that first column, the situations that bother you and irritate you, don't have to be just related to kids. It can be related to your spouse, family, work, friends, driving, cooking, shopping. It can be absolutely any situation in your life. Okay, so that's the first column we're going to have. And then the second column is, what's your normal response to each of these situations? Okay, so again, I'll just give you a couple of minutes to write these down. And again, I want you to be honest with yourself. You're going to keep this list with yourself. Okay, this is a list for you. And this is also a form of worship that we're doing now. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about tadabbur, okay, reflecting, this is the exact activity that we're doing now, is we're just reflecting on ourselves. So we don't want to miss out on this valued act of worship, inshallah. Okay. So hopefully, inshallah, we've written down briefly what the response would be. Now we come to a third question. And the third question is referring to the second column. So whatever you do in this situation. So first of all, we listed a problem that bothers you. Then we wrote down next to it, what do I normally do in this situation? Okay. Now, next to this, what I'd like you to do is write down this response that you have. Does it solve the problem? Okay. So does it solve the problem? This might be a simple yes, no. And then the second part to this question is, if the problem is resolved, then at what cost is the problem resolved? What is the aftermath once you have responded the way that you do? What are the repercussions? Okay, so first of all, I identified the problem that bothers me, annoys me, frustrates me. Then I wrote down what is my normal response to this situation. Then I'm writing down, does my response solve the situation? And then number 4, I'm making a note of, if the situation is resolved or I feel it's resolved, what are the repercussions? What's the aftermath? What are the after effects of solving the problem in the way that I am solving it? Now, when you answer this question, you will understand how costly your response was, right? You will understand the true value of your response. Okay, so again, I'll just give a few moments for you to write that down as well. Okay. Now, finally, a fourth question to this activity. So thinking about the situation which you wrote down in column 1, right? So this situation that irritated you, and looking at the response that you normally give. Now I'd like you to list down and write down what you should have and could have done differently. So, for example, you wrote down a situation to do with your spouse or your parents or some people that work with you or some people that you manage, right? I mean, some people get angry with their kids. Some people get very angry at their parents. So now the response that you give to that situation and those people, does that response solve the situation with these people, or does it make the situation actually worse? What effect does it have on those people? What are the repercussions? So essentially, what you're doing here is you're putting yourself in that individual's shoes and saying, this is how I felt. Okay, so what the fourth activity or the fourth question is addressing is, what should the ideal response be in that situation? So the fourth question to this activity is, write down what you should have done differently. And to answer that question, you can think about, how did the person feel? From my side, I solved the situation. Okay, how I solved it, I'm not going to think about that. I solved the situation, but now you need to write down, as the fourth question is, what should I have done differently, or what could I have done differently? And in that, of course, you're going to be thinking deeper. So what effect does it have on the people, right? What were the repercussions? So what could I have done differently? So really here, what we're saying is, how different should this response be from the one that I usually give? What should my response have been like? What principle should the response be based on? What should you ideally do in that situation? And I suppose this then opens up a much bigger chapter of what should some of the basic principles of life be when it comes to common life situations. So, for example, if you lose something or if someone wrongs you, how do you feel? How do you resolve that situation? What could you have done differently? Now, to answer this, we need to understand what is our current world view on when someone wrongs us, or if someone forgets to fulfill a promise, and what should my worldview actually be in that situation? So this is then closely linked to how close we are to, you can say, deen, or how strong is our iman. So for example, what troubles me is falling ill and getting sick. Now, if I have a worldview, a common worldview, falling sick is an inconvenience. I hate it, and I will do anything to get out of it. I'll start feeling grumpy, and each time I get sick, or if I discover I have a long-term health condition, I'm going to be depressed. And for that, then, not only am I going to seek treatment to cure the disease, I'm going to start taking antidepressants because I think it's the end of my life. This is ridiculous. Why did it happen to me? So this is one worldview. Now, if we have a worldview which has been shown to us by Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, then this worldview tells me that when a believer is inflicted with even with a fever, his sins are forgiven. When a thorn pricks the believer, his sins are forgiven. So now if I am inflicted with a disease, a fever, a temperature, a cold, a flu, am I going to feel depressed? Or am I going to say, Alhamdulillah, my sins are being forgiven? And what kind of sins are being forgiven? Only Allah knows. Maybe I did tawbah, but my tawbah wasn't sincere enough and it wasn't accepted. So Allah here did me a favor and inflicted me, gave me this thorn prick, gave me this cold and flu. And because of that, this sin is now guaranteed to be forgiven. Okay, so this is what we talk about, worldview. So to answer the fourth question, okay, it's very important that we think about our worldview. What is our worldview from an Islamic perspective on this situation? And only then will we be able to come up with an ideal response, which will have minimal repercussions. In fact, it won't have any repercussions. It won't be, our response won't be costly. It won't have any damage. Okay, there won't be any collateral damage if we have the correct worldview. Okay, so that's 4 questions. So I hope that activity has been understood. Like I said, hopefully everyone started this activity. Continue with it, work on it, and even share your answers with your spouses and think, okay, how could I have really dealt with this situation in a better way, right? If you're not sure, go ask a friend, go ask someone that you think is knowledgeable, that can help you. So understand this. Right. So now we've covered 2 activities. So the first activity was about what issues the child has and which of those issues exist within me. The second activity is about what my response is in different situations. Okay, now let's do another task. And this task is about analyzing your personality, a bit. And for this, you need to be honest with yourself. Okay, but I'm going to start off with a general question here. How many of you can identify a person who is usually the target of your anger? Right? Who is that person who you usually get angry with or who you get angry at? And here I'd like you to ask yourself or ask someone close to you, who is that person who you normally get annoyed and angry with? Who is that guy? Who is that girl? Is it your spouse? It might be your kids. It might be a worker, employee. It might be a senior. It might even be your parents. It might be your siblings, your brother, your sister, your auntie, your uncle, your neighbors, right? Who is that someone who you do not click with and you end up getting angry and frustrated? So, I mean, generally, you're happy with life, you're happy with people, but there is someone that just triggers you who you get angry with. I mean, you make lots of intentions and you say that, you know what, I'm going to stay calm on this occasion. I'm not going to get annoyed. Um, I'm just going to dodge anything that comes my way. I'm going to have a thick skin and I'm not going to let anything offend me. But in the end, it just becomes really difficult and there's tension again. And the person or this person is now in trouble and you just unleash your anger on them, right? Maybe the rest of the people don't have a problem with this individual, but you do. Right? Who is that person? Let's identify that. Now let's look at another side to this. Um, there's some people whose problem is not just one person. Okay, so in this activity, I said, who is that one person? Sometimes for some people, it's not just one person. In fact, unfortunately, sometimes for someone, it is the entire family. Okay, it's your whole personal, private life. See, our life has two spheres. One is our public life, and one is our private life. And who is in our private life? It's our spouses and it's our children. Now, some people's issue is that their anger is unleashed mostly on the people who are in the sphere of their private life. So it's not just one person, but it's everyone in that household. Okay, so that's a second group of people, a second scenario. Then we come to a third scenario. And what is this scenario? This is that here we have a person, he is just unpredictable, right? This person can get angry in his private life or in his public life. And you just never know about this person's anger. You know, he's very, very unpredictable, very volatile, can snap anytime, can get into arguments with people on the street whilst driving. I mean, he gets into arguments whilst he's shopping. He gets into arguments with clients. He gets into arguments with colleagues, with friends. You know, this person can just flip at any place in any situation, and there's just you just can't figure out the reason for this. Okay. And this person can get, you know, into a pickle with his family. And then, of course, the children as well. So lots of people are the victim of this person's anger. Now, this is a very dangerous scenario. So meaning, I mean, all three scenarios that I've discussed, they're dangerous. So if you're getting angry with one person, or if you're getting angry with the people in your personal sphere, or if you're getting angry with people in your personal and public sphere, right? But the most dangerous is the third scenario. And this is a very serious type of anger that's unleashed at any time, and it's uncontrollable. So a lot of people are scared with this kind of person. Okay, you can still deal with person one and possibly person two, but person three, a lot of people are scared. Okay, so that's three activities that we've done so far. So first of all, we made a list of what issues kids have, and we reflected on ourselves. Then our second activity is we looked at our response in the situations and how do we deal with the responses and how should we deal with responses. And then thirdly, we had a look at who do I get angry at the most? Or do I get angry with a group of people in my private life? Or am I the third category kind of a person who gets angry at anyone in public or in private. Okay, so they're the three activities which I would really like you to spend some time alone on these, thinking hard and reflecting. Okay. And this activity itself will reveal lots of problems, but at the same time, inshallah, because we're doing this with sincerity, it will hopefully, inshallah, help us come up with instant solutions. Okay. So now, moving on from the activities, let's go on towards some of the underlying factors of this behavior that we've just been discussing. Okay. And of course, anger is the one that we're focusing on today. Now, anger is it's a very small topic, actually. I know it's big in terms of its effects, but the real topic, which we won't discuss today, but we have to understand, is its temperament. So the larger umbrella topic is temperament, and in the within temperament we have a chapter called rage and anger, right? So we have temperament, then within temperament we have anger. Actually, in fact, if I go back a step, where do we actually start off from? The real topic is actually the nafs, the self, right? So the largest chapter that we have to understand is we have a nafs. Now within nafs we have something called temperament, and within temperament we have anger. So today what we're going to do is we're just going to focus on anger and understand what the issue is. But we need to have a larger conversation around nafs, okay? Because this is something which essentially took Iblis out of Jannah. Okay. Iblis was in the heavens, he was worshipping. Okay, essentially it was Shaitan. So who whispered in Shaitan's heart to not bow down in front of Adam alayhi salam? There wasn't another Shaitan. It was nafs, right? And every person is created with a nafs. And nafs is something which is invisible. You can't feel it, you can't touch it, okay? But you can certainly sense it. So how do you deal with this invisible, untouchable thing, entity, which is causing us all these issues? And so that's the actual topic of discussion. But like I said, today we're just focusing on anger. So what we have to understand with anger is getting angry or feeling angry is not a bad thing, right? We have to understand that anger or the emergence of anger it's a natural reaction, a reflex reaction that Allah Ta'ala has built within us. It's part of our fitrat, right? So getting angry, feeling angry is not against our nature. It's part of nature. So getting angry, feeling angry is not the issue. Okay. The issue is unleashing your anger and using your anger, right? So there are two different things, feeling angry and then unleashing your anger. So what we are trying to understand here is, or what we will accept is unleashing your anger. That's the issue. And that is what is causing the problem. Okay. So if we go now deeper into this, what we have to look at is we need to review the matters which we resent, which we find unpleasant or disagreeable, right? So which matters make you angry? And those matters are linked to people who you become angry with or that person. And what are those matters and who are those people who are bothering you? What are those matters and who are those people who are causing you offense or you're taking offense to? Right? That's one thing that we have to review. Then we need to see whether we need to get angry about these matters or not. Right? Is this matter worth getting angry and frustrated over? And if you look at our deen of Islam, so the demand of deen is, and you've probably heard this, that love should be for the sake of Allah and enmity as well. Anger should also be for the sake of Allah. So what does this actually mean? So if we were to implement this principle or this hadith, then what we're saying is you should not get angry about something that should not make you angry. So we said anger is in our fitrat, right? It's okay to feel angry, but unleashing anger is the problem. But then to feel angry over the wrong thing is also a problem. So for example, if we take love, loving is a good thing. But if I start loving anything and everyone, that's a problem. So what do I have to do is I need to understand what is it that I can love and what is it that I'm not supposed to love. Similarly, what we have to understand is angry, becoming angry, feeling angry, it's a natural feeling. It's in fact, Allah subhanahu, one of Allah's name is amongst his names of being loving and caring is that he can get, he's qahar. Okay. There is the anger of Allah's jalal is there, the anger is there. But where does Allah's anger appear? Over what situations? And that's what we have to understand. And that is again linked to our nafs. And we need to think about this in depth. So getting angry is a quality and the name of Allah, but we have to know what to get angry over and what not to get angry over. Right? We need to align with Allah and our deen. And if we have any level of misalignment over here, then it's going to cause issues with people around you. And if we fail to understand what Allah wants, we're going to fail to understand the world, and this misunderstanding is going to create a turmoil in your life, right? You're going to start getting angry over unnecessary things. You'll end up upsetting people, and so on, right? So we should only feel angry over what is truly meant to be felt as anger, okay? So now the second point. The second point is, right, so you found something which is worth feeling angry about. So first of all, what did we say? Should I get angry over this, yes or no? So now we have this principle. Yes, I know I should get angry over this. This is unreasonable. I'm not supposed to get angry over this. Okay, good. Now, point number 2. Now you have something which you know that I should get angry about. Okay. The question here is, how much offense or how angry should you get? Right? Should I feel really, really annoyed and really, really angry, or should I feel maybe just a little? How sensitive am I? Am I taking too much offense over something which didn't really need so much attention? And this is the issue that we have. We become overly sensitive and we take too much offense over small things. And then we find it difficult to forget. We find it difficult to forgive, right? We take it to heart. So we need to think about managing our sensitivities here and calibrating our response and attention to matters that are, for example, that are justifiable and worth getting angry over, right? We need to stop feeling overly irritated and overly sensitive about things which Allah is cool about. And Allah doesn't have a problem with it, so why do I have a problem? Should I let this situation and should I let this matter penetrate and find a place in my heart where then I cook it and then I can't forget it and it makes me feel bitter and I feel more angry and it just ruins my mood and then I unleash my anger on anyone and everyone, right? Should I super glue this event, this situation, and cement it in my memory and in my heart? Right? That's the second question. That's the second point that we need to. How much offense am I supposed to take over something which has a valid reason to take offense? Right? That's the measure that we need to have a look at. So, after getting angry over something valid, how angry should I get needs assessing. Okay. But then the third part we need to address is, and this is very, very important. How apparent, how visible should my anger and frustration and annoyance be? How apparent should it be? Do I need to display my anger through the volume of my voice, through my choice of words, through my tone, my hand and arm movements, my posture, my use and choice of words, my facial expressions. Okay, or maybe in this day and age of technology, we need to ask a question: how do I display my anger through the choice of my words and emojis that I message people? Okay, or the voice notes that I'm sending, or the emojis that I'm sending, or the sarcastic comments, or even worse, right? Am I blocking this contact and unsubscribing to them? Now, when you block a contact, what we're doing is essentially we're closing the door and locking the door of the house on a person's face. Right? Would we do this? Inshallah, I hope not. Right? But we have cases, may Allah forgive us. We have cases where people literally just close the door. But an easier digital form of this is blocking the contact. Right? This is also an element of anger which we will be questioned about on the day of judgment. Okay, anger doesn't just have to be physical. Anger is through digital platforms as well. So this person is knocking on the door, he's calling, he's knocking on the window, he's ringing the bell, but you're refusing to open, right? If we don't do that to our guests in real life, face to face, physically, then how can we do that on gadgets, right? So anyway, so the first thing is, what makes you feel bad and angry? Should you feel this way or not? Then how much should you feel the way you are feeling? Okay. And thirdly, if it's bad, should you display your anger and emotions over the issue, or should you remain silent? Right. So taking things to heart and then stopping yourself from displaying it is a higher level of morality and character, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks highly of. And this is basically, what is it? This is ihsan. I mean, we as Muslims should be displaying a higher level of morality. We should be displaying a higher level of character. And how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describe this? He says, Inna Allaha yuhibbul muhsinin. So Allah is saying, I love you who are muhsin. Okay. And then furthermore, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in the Quran? And there is a very clear ayah on this. And again, this should be our worldview. When I see this situation where I have been made to feel angry or upset, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? He says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ولا تستوي الحسنة ولا السيئة ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم. And then further on, the next ayat Allah says, وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا الَّذِينَ صَبَرُوا وَمَا يُلَقَّاهَا إِلَّا ذُو حَظٍّ عَظِيمٍ. So if I was to read the translation of this, what is Allah saying here? Is وَلَا تَسْتَوِي الْحَسَنَةُ وَلَا السَّيِّئَةُ. So good and evil cannot be equal. Okay, so if some evil has been done, some evil has been done and I'm taking offense to it, I'm upset, I'm angry. So what is Allah saying? Good and evil cannot be the same. So what will you do in this situation? ادفع بالتي هي أحسن. Respond to the evil, respond to the situation with what is best. ادفع بالتي هي أحسن. And then what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guarantee after that? He says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says himself, فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ. Then the one you are in a feud with will be like a close friend. So this is Allah himself prescribing this to you. Evil comes your way, respond with what is best, and you will see that the one you are in a feud with, they will become like a close friend. Don't expect this to happen on the first instance, right? And then if they don't respond, then no, that's not the case. Look at Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Classic example, Jewish lady throwing rubbish all the time. Okay, what was Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam's response? Idfa' billati hiya ahsan. When this Jewish lady falls sick, he goes to visit her, to do timardari, to ask how she is, and she ends up converting to Islam. فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم. Right? She became a close friend. Not just to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she became a close friend to Allah. But then further on, what does Allah say? وَمَا يَلَقَاهَا, as I read. But this quality, this cannot be attained except by those who are patient and who are truly fortunate. So there's two things over here. If we want to adopt this quality of idfa' billati hiya ahsan, repel evil with something which is better, okay, with ihsan, then there's two things that we have to do. Number one, we have to be patient. And who are the patient people? They are the ones who have been given this patience by Allah, and they are truly fortunate. Okay, so if I was to read another translation of this, it is, and no one will be granted such goodness except those who exercise patience and self-restraint. So none but persons of the greatest good fortune. So one of the doors of Jannah is for those who actually exercise patience. So you have to exercise patience and not display that you're feeling angry or upset or hurt. And you will be given access to this door in Jannah to enter Jannah. Right? So so here, like in the Quran, it's very clear we have been given a very big responsibility to display this level of patience and non-offensiveness. And sometimes what happens is, unfortunately, we find people, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really give us these features. Some people, unfortunately, they have been given this facial geometry that even if they're not taking offense at anyone's words or a situation, when you look at this person, you think that maybe he's upset or angry or offended, right? And unfortunately, sometimes people become like this because they've been in this tense situation for a long time, right? They've not had the time to think about their issues, their responses, their feelings. They've not had time to reflect. So here, they've not had time to physically reflect at themselves in the mirror, and neither have they had time to introspect and reflect at their own issues and their feelings and the state of their heart and their mind and their thoughts. So they've just been in this constant state of just being annoyed and anxious and not trusting and, constantly on the run. Right? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq and the ability to see the faults within ourselves. And when I say faults, it's just not the physical faults, it's the emotional, it's the faults of our expressions, it's our spiritual faults, everything. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that spiritual eye where we can take account of ourselves before Allah takes us to account on the Day of Judgment. So on this topic then of displaying anger in emotions and reactions, what we have to also observe is our eyes. Because this area of the eyes, so your eyes and the area around your eyes, this area of your face communicates a lot, and children observe this very, very well. And it's something that they're constantly focusing on. And just through observing this, a child knows exactly how you're feeling. So you're trying to restrain yourself, but this gives it away. So this is something that we really have to work on. And one of the exercises, our teachers give is, if you're just sat down, just look at yourself in the mirror and look at the expression on your face. Are you smiling? If you're not smiling, practice smiling. Practice having a smile. When you're outside and the sky and it's cloudy and it's raining, most people, the eyes will, cringe. Okay? Learn to open your eyes. Learn to smile when you feel the rain. Learn to smile when you feel the wind. Learn to smile when you hear someone swearing at you. Right? This is an activity, a practice that we do. Idfa' billati hiya ahsan. Respond evil with something that is better, with ihsan. And when we have, when we do this reflection, when we do this activity, when we are constantly aware of ourselves, we're constantly reflecting, we will see and we'll get a snapshot of exactly how we are throughout the day. Okay. So something that we really have to work on is facial expressions. And this is linked to displaying your anger. Okay. Many people, they're absolutely wonderful. Okay, so they live in a great place, and when you look at them, you know, they just appear so happy. They appear so joyful. Whenever you see them, they're always smiling. I mean, there might be something wrong with them. You discover that, you know, they had a car accident, but when you meet them, they never show you that they're ill. They've had a car accident. They just lost their job. You know, they've had an argument with someone. They've just heard some bad news of someone passing away. They're just constantly smiling. They're happy people to be around. What is this? This is the art of idfa' billati hiya ahsan. Whatever evil came their way, they turned it around into a smile. And now the question is, have you come across a person like this? A person who does not show it all, but they keep it inside, right? So a small activity over here is write down how many people you know who do not take offense easily. They are forgiving, and it's actually easy for them to forgive. It's easy for them to pardon. It's easy for them to ignore, right? And they do not take offense easily. And in fact, we don't even realize that they've taken offense because they're so good at hiding it that they don't even show it. Okay. And maybe after a few months, you realize that, oh my God, this person um, really doesn't like this and he normally takes offense. But when I was with him, he never showed it on his face, right? And sometimes, I mean, you can't even tell whether this person has taken offense or not. So, for example, you invited someone over for a meal and you serve them this amazing nihari, right? Or you fed them this biryani and it was really spicy. And you're sat there and they're eating and they were smiling and they left happy, right? And you thought, Alhamdulillah, you know, amazing time we had. He enjoyed the food. I spent so long cooking food and they really enjoyed it. They all left. No one complained. In fact, they were all offering us um, praises. So what happens over here? After a few months, what do you discover? You discover that this person who came to your house doesn't actually like spicy food. And you're thinking, subhanAllah, but he came to my house a few months ago and he was absolutely fine. What kind of a person is this? Or maybe, for example, you served tea. You served tea and you made it with, you know, like a milky tea, but this person doesn't have tea with milk and they have this, you know, black tea or red tea, depending on what part of the world you're from. And they drank it with a sip. And in fact, when you offer them a second cup, they didn't refuse. They said, okay, yes, fine, you know. And they took the second cup and they had the second cup as well. And a few months later, you discover that this person doesn't actually drink tea. So you visited their house and you just get talking to his wife and you discover that, and she tells you that, you know what, my husband, he absolutely hates tea with milk. That's why we always have tea without milk. Are you guys going to be okay with that? And you're thinking to yourself, subhanAllah, I offered not one cup, two cups, three cups, right? We asked them to finish the entire pot, but this person did not show any anger, any frustration, any dislike for this cup of tea. Do we know these kind of people? Have we met these kind of people? Sometimes you're sat with people, they're eating and they're drinking, they're just nodding their head, they're smiling, and you're discussing something and you're stating some sort of fact, but later on you find out that the person that you were talking about is actually an expert in the field. And some of the things that you said weren't entirely true. But he never mentioned, he never stood to correct you. He was just acting as if, oh, really? Subhanallah, wow, that's amazing. Okay, then what happened? And then what else? Tell me more. And they were, in fact, an expert in that topic. Okay, maybe you exaggerated lots of things. Or maybe you're sat down, you're complaining about a business. Okay, or you're complaining about someone that you met on the street that, oh my God, their service is so terrible, you don't want to go to that shop. And this person is just listening attentively. And then later on, you discover that the business or the person you were slating actually belongs to this person, right? Or it's his brother, or it's his sibling, or a cousin, or a close friend, it's his best friend. But whilst you were slating that individual, he didn't say anything, right? What is this? This is idfa' billati hiya ahsan. So again, for this activity, what I'd like you to do is make a list of such people. How many can you list who don't take offense easily? And if they do, they don't show it, right? They don't show it with their facial expressions. They don't show it in conversation or anywhere that they were upset, they were angry, they were offended. Right? So for example, you have a driver. So there's a driver and this driver's coming late. And you're like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. This is not on. How can the driver come late? He should have planned it better. He should have informed you you're going to be late. So you're getting frustrated for your friend because his driver's coming late. And when this driver turns up, your friend turns around and says, oh, assalamu alaikum, how are you? Come on, let's go. So they do salam, they get in the car and they leave. And now you're left thinking that what a weird guy. He didn't even say anything to the driver. And there I was getting so frustrated, I was getting angry, and I was telling him to discipline his driver and put a complaint in and change it, right? They just don't express it. So make a list of these people with these qualities. Okay, so they don't take offense easily. And if they do take offense, they don't realize, or we don't realize that they've taken offense. And if the situation does arise, then they can easily forgive, they can easily overlook, and they have no problem with it at all. Right? So hopefully, inshallah, we'll have some names there. So now the next part to this activity is, and I don't want you to write this down. And if you are going to write it down, maybe just write the last letter of their second name. Okay. So what I'd like you to do now is, in a second column, make a list of the people who have the opposite of these qualities, which means these people take offense very easily. And if they do take offense, they are immediately expressive about it. They'll express it to you. They'll use their facial expressions, their eyebrows, their body language, their words, like they'll just express how angry or frustrated that they are. And it becomes immediately clear that this person has taken offense. And then they won't even let go easily as well. So make a list of these people. Is it yourself? Do not write the full name. Okay, we don't want to be doing any ribat over here, right? So the reason why I've asked you, so the first list it will come to, there's a reason why I've asked you to make the first list of these people. The reason why I've asked you to make a list of the second people is to help you understand the value of the first list. Okay. And I don't want you to spend too much time thinking about the second list, right? It's just if it comes to your mind, alhamdulillah, then we move on. At this point, we need to make a dua. What is this dua? Oh Allah, remove me from the list of the second type of people and place me in the list of the first type of people. Ya Allah, I want to get out of the people of the second list and I want to go to the people of the first list. So I will try my best. But without your help, this effort cannot be successful. We need to here ask for Allah's help. And just imagine if there are other people making this list. If your name appears in the second list, this is extremely worrying. So this is the dua that we make, that Ya Allah, I wish to be out of this list. Okay. Now, when we look at ibadat, when we look at worship, then essentially what we need to do is, major act of worship is trying to be the best people that we can be. In Surah Mulk, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? الذي خلق الموت والحياة ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. So I created death and life to see which of you are best in their deeds. So what is my purpose of creation over here? Allah is saying, it's not about how much charity you give, how much gold you give, how many masajid you built, how much Quran you know, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not judge an individual based on the number of deeds. Because if that was the case, here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have said, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَكْثَرُ أَمَلًا. Okay, so Allah didn't use the word أَكْثَرُ أَمَلًا, He said أَحْسَنُ أَمَلًا. So who is the best in their deeds? Again, idfa' billati hiya ahsan. Right. So here we have to really ask Allah that, Ya Allah, the little that I'm doing, I want to do it with perfection. I want to do it with ihsan. So we really have to ask for Allah's help over here. So may Allah protect us from the people of the second list. Okay, so let's go back then. So let's do a slight deeper analysis. So the first thing which I said was, what are the issues that you take offense to? The second thing I said was, should we take an offense to these issues or not? The third thing that we said was, how upset, angry, or frustrated should you feel to these issues if they are justified? And then the fourth thing is, if you have taken offense, is it necessary for it to be evident in your facial expressions, in your tone, in your words, your body language? Should the other person know about it? Okay. So now we have another question, another question, or I'd say this is more of a sort of reflective activity. And the question I ask here is, can there be matters in your life which you consider as a moral responsibility to display beauty in character by hiding something which you may be feeling bad about? Because if I disclose this, it will hurt that person, or it will make that person feel embarrassed. So do we have, as Muslims, as adults, do we think that we have a moral responsibility to display this kind of beauty in character where we are hiding the faults of others? Okay, and this reminds me of two things. Number one of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names is He is Sattar. What does Sattar mean? The one who covers. So Allah right now is covering my faults, my mistakes. Only I and Allah and these angels on my shoulders know how many problems I have, what the evil is within me. But Allah here is covering. Then we move on. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describe the husband and wife in the Quran? He describes them as a covering for each other, like a piece of cloth. Okay, so when you have a piece of cloth on a person, okay, if you drape someone with a piece of cloth, then you're no longer able to see the shape of their body. You're no longer able to see the blemishes on their skin, the scars on their skin, right? And this cloth will cover all the faults, and it will protect this person from external harm. So do we actually feel that? I mean, it's a question that I want everyone to ask themselves. Do I feel it's my moral responsibility to display this kind of beauty of character where I cover the mistakes of other people, where I don't embarrass them, I don't disclose something, I don't express things which will expose them, their fault, their mistakes, right? So for example, you're sat somewhere, you didn't like something, but you stayed quiet because you didn't want to break the person's heart, right? Maybe you're a qari with amazing tajweed, okay, and you heard someone praying, and they're trying really hard, and it's far from perfect. In fact, the tajweed is awful. Okay. would you go and correct them in front of a crowd or even on your own? How would you do it? Or maybe you heard someone speaking in a language which you yourself are an expert at, but the other person isn't. Do you feel it's your moral responsibility here to just stay quiet and ignore all the grammatical mistakes and ignore all their pronunciation? Or maybe you see someone cooking something in a certain way, okay, or plating something in a certain way, and you don't approve of this, right? It's against your standards. So do you feel it's your moral responsibility here to stay quiet and just smile and just go with the flow? Or must you show and tell this person how you feel, and you have to tell them that their action or behavior, what they're doing, is wrong, it's upsetting you, it's not as per standard, it's not looking nice? Where do we stand? Where do I stand in terms of moral ground on this issue? Right? And this is something that we really have to think about, because during our childhood and teenage years, many children and younger people actually experience this, where they had their faults and mistakes overlooked, and people didn't comment or they didn't even show their disapproval. It's only later on in life that they discovered that, you know what, my parents knew all about this, or my teacher knew all about this, or the neighbor saw me doing something, but they never mentioned anything. They just kept it hidden. So we experience this in our teenage years. Now the question we need to ask ourselves is, do we as adults experience this in our adult life? Are we experiencing this? Are we creating such experiences for other people? Are we creating these experiences of satariyat for our wives, for our spouses, for our kids? Or are we just quick to go in and bash them? Right? For example, a friend makes a cup of tea, and they made a Kashmiri tea. So we know what Kashmiri tea is. It's the tea with it's made of milk and it's pink and it's got, you know, loads of it's just milk basically, pure milk with lots of nuts and sugar and flavoring, right? So you've gone to your friend's house and they've made this amazing, well, what they think is an amazing cup of Kashmiri tea, and by the way, it's really expensive because it's just pure milk and nuts, etc. You know, and it takes a long time to make. But the problem is, you only drink black tea. Now, when they serve it to you, you have the option of drinking this tea with a smile and appreciating the effort and intention that your friend has made this cup of tea with. Thinking about this is actually very expensive tea. He could have made a much cheaper tea for me. It's just a tea bag and some water, and that's it. So, are we going to appreciate their effort and their intention and stay quiet? Okay, and have this um, situation of satariyat and just smile and continue talking? Are you going to taste the ikhlas and the love of your friend in this tea? Or are we going to find faults in it and say, no, sorry, I can't have this tea. You know, I don't have this. It's awful. What kind of milk have you used? You cooked it too much. There's too much sugar. What do we actually find? Unfortunately, most people are not on this moral ground. They're not on this moral standing where they can simply appreciate the other person's effort, right? Instead, they want to take this as an opportunity to refuse the drink or the meal and then begin to lecture them and make these weird and wonderful, you know, remarks and suggestions, right? That's the really sad situation we're in nowadays. So the question is, how many experiences do you as adults, how many experiences have you had where you were able to stay quiet and continue with a smile without passing a comment? You know, our teachers, they tell us a story about this husband and wife. So a very, you know, loving husband and wife, they've been married for decades, and not particularly rich, not a fancy house. But every morning the husband goes to the bakery and he buys like a bun. So when he comes home, he cuts the bun across in half, and he always gives the top half, the crunchy half of the bun, to the wife. And sometimes the wife cuts it and she gives the bottom half to her husband. And this goes on for years. Okay, so the crunchy part is going to the wife, and then the bottom soft part is going to the husband. So after so many years, one day what happens is the husband and wife decide to swap. So what the wife does is she takes the top half, but then she gives it back to the husband and say, look, I think you should have this today. Okay. And then the husband takes the bottom half and he gives it to the wife. And now they start talking, and what they discover was that what the husband has been offering to the wife for so many years is actually the part that he likes. But because he felt that I like this so much, my wife will like it as well, that's what he's been giving. And the wife was the exact same. She was offering the soft part of the bun because she liked it so much. She thought, you know what? Because I love it so much, let me give it to him. And it's only after so many years that they discovered that they were actually doing what each other love. Right? Look at the level of sacrifice here. And I think if we were to uh, make this sort of maybe more relatable, then it reminds me of mothers, right? Aren't mothers like this, that they become so selfless that they offer the best parts of the meat and the chicken and the dish to the kids, right? They'll take it out of their plate and they'll give it to their kids. They'll give it to their husbands. They'll give it to the guests. And what are they left with? They're just left with the dry rice, or they're just left with the curry sauce, the shorba, right? And even that, then they eat with so much satisfaction. And it brings a smile to their face. And in fact, they say, I enjoy watching you eating this. Look at the moral ground and the selflessness and the sacrifice that these people, mothers especially, have. Okay, or certainly um, our elderly mothers. Do we find this in modern day 21st century mothers? Are they prepared? Do we find this in modern day fathers, where they're prepared to sacrifice their own meal for their kids and for their spouses? And when they're sacrificing, they do it out of happiness and say, you know what? No, I actually don't enjoy the meat. You enjoy the meat. I like the shorba. But really deep down inside, they would like the meat, but they find more satisfaction feeding it to you. Right? So here we really need to work on ourselves. We don't have to display and show each other that we are offended all the time. And if something is unpleasant, it's not to the level of my taste, buds, my standards, just don't show it. Okay. And this is an amazing experience that someone can have. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to experience such situations and also provide these experiences as well. So now after all of this, now we can go on to the next question, which is related to anger, and ask, if there is a need to express, then how do we express? And in what capacity and what intensity, right? So this now is the very last question that we have to answer. So what did we say? Number one, the first question we ask is, should I take offense? Yes or no? Number two, if I'm going to take offense, how much offense should it be? How much offense should I take? Should it be as much as I'm taking now, or do I need to reduce it? Number three, if I am to take offense, then should I display this level of offense, this anger, to the individual or the situation? Or should I just keep it hidden within myself and it just dissolves? It just evaporates and khalas, it's gone, right? Should I let the other person find out? And then the fourth one, the very last question then we ask ourselves is, if you find it necessary to display, so basically after having gone through all these filters, if you find it's necessary now to display your emotions, your feelings, your anger, then I need to display it in a manner that does not offend the individual. It doesn't belittle the individual. It does not insult the individual. It doesn't make them feel awkward, and it's done in a very soft manner. It's done in a very, very soft manner. And if you feel that the person's going to be offended, it's better just to stay quiet. Okay. So to wrap up, the first half is we've mentioned some activities, and now we'll come on to anger. Okay. So like I said, getting angry is not the issue. Okay. Feeling angry is not the issue. The issue is delivering the anger. Now, if we focus on the activities that we've just discussed, it will inshallah become very clear on how to deal with those situations when anger appears. Now let's look at some factors regarding parents. Okay, so now there's 5 factors here, which I'll go through, which we need to now really focus and work on and understand as well, if we go deeper into anger. And this is especially important if you are a parent, if you have kids going to school, college, and I suppose this will apply to adults who have spouses living with family members as well. Okay. And what our parents say is there's lots of reasons, there's lots of causes of anger, which is found commonly in parents, but they've been classified or grouped into 5 categories. Like I said, there's more, you can go into much more detail, but they've categorized it into 5 categories. Now, there's one category, the first category, which is a chemical category. So it's a chemical cause of anger, which we won't be discussing now. Okay. But I'll briefly sort of describe this and we can move on. There's other parts of anger which are linked to, so there's chemical causes of anger, then we have anger which is related to our thinking, our psyche, our thoughts, our feelings, our lifestyle, our upbringing, right? So I think we'll focus more on these today. Now, in order for a person to have his tazkiyah done, right, to be rectified, to have his islah done, then what is really important that we look at the guidelines and we focus on one's consciousness, one's awareness, one's intention, right? One's willpower, one's state of heart and mind, right? And the rest of our chemistry. Now, one thing we have to understand here is, and very clearly, is that we have not been created, or we've not been made to follow or be people, be humans, individuals whose behaviors are based on their chemistry, right? It is not allowed, it's not right for a believer to blame his chemistry for the actions that he does. And so our chemistry is really important, but Allah has given us purity of intentions. He's given us sincerity. He's given us prayer. He's given us dua. He's given us a choice to reform our lifestyle, our habits, our eating habits, our sleeping habits, okay, our physical and mental and spiritual fitness. He's given us the choice to reform this. And a very powerful concept that's being discussed nowadays is the power of the mind. Okay, the power of thought, the power of ideas. So many people are talking about this, Muslims and non-Muslims. And what we find is if an intention or a thought or a belief settles in your heart, then as a result, your chemistry can be influenced. So if you look after your lifestyle, your sleeping habits, if you are punctual in your prayer and you're reflective in your prayer and you are making dua, this has an impact and it can influence your chemistry. So we are in control of this. So we cannot blame our chemistry for the way we are. Okay, it's not going to sell on the Day of Judgment. Okay. So the first thing of these 5 points, which I'd like you to maybe think about if you want to write it down as well, is how many of you, and this is a very difficult one, okay, but just stay with me on this. How many of you had parents who were very angry? Either both your parents were angry, or maybe one of your parents was angry. Either your father was angry and your mother wasn't, or your mother was angry and your father wasn't, or maybe both of them that were angry. Or maybe you had a teacher, or maybe you had a teacher who was angry. Maybe you like this teacher, but they were angry. Okay. How many of us have these? Their body language and their expressions, for example, their behaviors, their tone of voice, maybe that made us feel scared, right? So how many of us have had this experience? How many of us have come into contact with these kind of people, right? Now, um, we know that these people exist, and we know that people like this also exist nowadays as well. Now, if I ask another question, and this might be strange for the younger generation, but maybe more relatable to the older generation who are sort of in their sort of mid-30s and beyond, or maybe possibly even in the 30s. If you think about these people, despite these people's anger, despite these people's frustration and how they lived with you and what your experiences were with them, do you still love these people? Are you still in touch with these people? Do you still respect and honor these people? So, for example, your mum used to get really angry. She used to maybe even beat you up, okay, always lecturing you, but you are still very closely attached with your mother. Or maybe your father was like this, but you're still attached with your father and you're very close to them. You still respect them, you go to them for advice. They're still your favorite person. Or maybe it's your teacher as well. You know, for those of us who went to maybe madrasa back in the days, we used to get beat up with bamboo sticks. Okay. Are you still in touch with those teachers and are you still attached to them and do you still respect them? Okay. And then, like I said, this is probably more of a question for those who are sort of 30 and above. Now, the reason why I'm saying this, and we have to understand is, I mean, what's really interesting is in the good old days, as we used to describe, it was perfectly possible to have a parent or a teacher who was angry, but you still remained, and you still remain to this day connected and attached to them. You still respect and honor them, right? For this, first of all, we should make shukr that Allah has given us the spirit and the ability to continue loving and respecting these people despite of what we went through with them or what they went through with us, right? Works both ways. But first of all, we do shukr on this. And now this is extremely, extremely important. And I really want you to focus on this and understand. We have to understand that the reason why we remain attached with them, with these people who may have displayed rage and anger, etc. The reason why we remain attached to them, it's linked to the culture that we were brought up in. Again, the reason why we remain attached to those people is because back in the good old days, the culture that we were being brought up in demanded that we remain respectful to our adults. We remain respectful and honorable to our teachers, right? Society back in the days stood with elders and adults. Respect for the elders, respect for the adults. That was the society. Nowadays, society is completely different. So if you understand this, then you will then come to understand that the age and society and the culture that we're living in today is completely different. So we cannot expect the same from our children if we adopt the nature and behaviors of our parents. Right? Look, Alhamdulillah, we hear lots of stories of how strict our elders were, our scholars were, our grandparents were, people from the Indian, subcontinent, etc. And we hear their biographies and we hear people talking about them and they say, look, they were amazing people. We know they were really strict and, they had they were just quick to flip, but we still speak highly of them, right? We don't hold grudges. Why? And in fact, today we will go and say that, you know what, I'm actually so pleased that my parents did that to me because I've turned out the way I am because of them. That discipline that they had in their house, and what my teachers used to say, it was really strict, but I'm so glad. This attitude that we have, it's because of the culture that we were exposed to of that time. So here, what am I saying? I'm not saying that what was done in the past is correct. Okay? That we have to understand. The anger, the discipline, the way it was done may not have been correct. That's a separate principle which we do not that we don't agree with. But the reason why we are still attached to these people is because of the culture at the time. So here I will say, if you are that individual who is still in touch with his elders, and especially the parents, who may have treated you in what today kids would describe as, this is torture, this is tyranny, it's child abuse, right? If you are still in contact with them, then this is a sign of your high moral grounding. It's a sign of your intellect, it's a sign of your patience, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I pray, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use this quality of yours to honor and respect those individuals for showing patience and grant you into Jannatul Firdaus through the door of sabr. So Alhamdulillah, Allah gave us this quality where we were patient, we overlooked their mistakes, and we didn't, we had this element of satariyat, right? So we do shukr on this, Alhamdulillah, and it's a positive worldview that we had. The circumstances that we were living in, they may not have been easy, but we had a positive worldview. We turned the situation around and we took something very positive from it. Right? So this is a display of our high moral grounding, Alhamdulillah. We see them as guides, we saw them as guides, we know that they made some mistakes, but we overlooked it. And instead, we went to focus on their intentions. Because we know that the intention was to guide us, protect us, discipline us, because they wanted something better for us. How did you do it? Separate question, but I know you had good intentions. And that's the only way that you knew how to parent, right? So we give them that space for error. So again, this is, Alhamdulillah, Allah has given us this worldview, this understanding, this level of patience, okay? Because we see them as our muhsins, our well-wishers, right? And again, that was because culture and society stood with the elders back in the days. Now the problem is we cannot adopt the same strategy as our parents because the times are different, the culture is different, society has changed. Society is no longer, our culture is no longer, illa mashallah, if you have this within your family setup, in your khandan, this is amazing. If these are your principles in your kabila and the town or village that you're living in, amazing. But we do not find this in modern day society, in urban cities. We do not find this. Okay, society is no longer backing teachers, elders, parents. So what do we find? We find that, and this is where the problem is, we were brought up in an environment where anger was used as a form of discipline. Unconsciously, we adopted the same anger issues and techniques to try and discipline our children living in this day and age where the culture is different. We cannot do this. And we cannot use that as a justification to parent the way we parent our kids today. We have to understand and accept that, number one, anger is harmful. Alhamdulillah, we survived, but the reason why we survived is because of the culture we were living in. We cannot use the same as an excuse to parent the way that we do now. Right? So our approach cannot be based on previous generations, and we have to be conscious of this. And we find this very common. We use the excuse, "Oh, my dad was like this, and his dad was like this, so I'm like this as well." It's in our blood. This is where we came from. We cannot use this excuse and say this is my chemical or genetic makeup, right? It's my hormones. I'm from this part of the world, from this mountain tribe, and this is what we people are like, right? My forefathers were like this. We cannot blame our hormones, where we come from, for our poor behavior, for our anger, especially for our frustrations and anxieties. And we definitely cannot stand on the day of judgment and say to Allah, Ya Allah, I was angry because of my dad, and he was angry because of his dad, and this is linked to the village that we came from. It's not going to sell on the day of judgment. You cannot say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment that, Ya Allah, my glands, my hormones are to blame for. My thyroid issues and my dopamine issues are to blame for. Right? This is why I was always so angry. We cannot do that. If there is a hormonal imbalance, then we have to fix it through changing our lifestyle. We have to change our thoughts. We have to reflect. We have to change our mindset. We have to change this because these things have an impact on our chemical makeup, which then impacts our behavior. Right? We can alter the focus, we can alter our chemistry by focusing on the things, but we can't use chemistry as an excuse. Just because you're from a certain family background, it's not going to sell on the day of judgment. Okay, and it certainly won't sell in front of your kids, right? So you cannot blame your behavioral rigidity on your genes or chemistry. So we have to correct ourselves over here. We have been given the responsibility to keep our biology, our physiology, our psyche, our lifestyle under control, right? We have to change this. We are not a slave to our hormones. We are not a slave to our mindset, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not send us as a Khalifa who is a slave to his biology and hormones, right? We are in control. We have to understand this. We are in control. Khalifatul Ard was not sent as an abd to the hormones and society. The Khalifatul Ard was sent as a person who rules, who is in control, who is in charge, who knows how to lead because he's mastered his nafs. Remember we said nafs, temperament, anger? Okay. So the Khalifatul Ard is the one who has mastered his nafs. We have been given this responsibility and the ability to do this. Take, for example, fasting. When people fast or when children are hungry, what happens? They become irritable. But what do we have today? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect me and protect us. Today we have adult kids. Adults who, when they feel hungry, are facing the same level of irritability as a child. And then adults are using this as an excuse that, look, I've not had food. Of course, I'm going to be irritable. You're going to have a taste of my anger. So what's the difference between a child and an adult over here? Right? We can't say this. In Ramadan, we can't say in Ramadan that, oh, I'm fasting, so don't talk to me because I'm really irritable. The whole purpose of Ramadan and fasting was to make you have control over yourself, over your nafs. Right? So we have to understand the purpose of fasting was, self-control. Right? So going back to parents. So if we had parents who were angry and we're not on terms with them, number one, we have to restore our relationship with them. We have to forgive them, and we have to understand that their intentions were correct, right? And we have to respect them. We have to look at the situation in a positive way, and we have to appreciate that they tried whatever they knew and they did whatever they could, right? They're not prophets, they're not sahabas, they're not angels. They are humans like me and you. Just as me and you are making mistakes in our parenting journey, they also made mistakes. So we have to have the element of forgiveness in our hearts. We need to forgive our parents. for any mistakes that they made. Number one. Secondly, we have to respect and love them and honor them. We have to be on the higher moral ground, right? So we need to conclude our parents' practices on a positive note by forgiving them. And then we need to see the beauty of their intent, an effort behind it, and develop a relationship with them. Okay. That's the first thing when it comes to us with our relationship with our parents. Now, the second thing that we have to do is we have to pause and reflect and not mindlessly follow their footsteps. Because if we do not reflect and pause, if we don't see things objectively, we will end up making the same mistakes as our parents. Okay? So we respect them, we honor them, but we have to pause and reflect. Because if we don't pause and reflect, two things are going to happen. Number one, we will continue to have an element of rage against our parents. And secondly, we will end up mindlessly following their footsteps, repeating the same mistakes. And remember, the times are different, the culture is different, and if we inflict our kids with the same behaviors and patterns displayed by our elders, which we don't agree with, it's going to cause huge problems. So we have to take control. Okay, so this was the 1 point out of 5. Moving on to the second, third, fourth, they're slightly shorter. The second point we have to think about is our lifestyle. What has happened is our lifestyle, so the cause of anger is our lifestyle. Our lifestyle, the busyness in our life, work, pressure, worries, stresses, errands, chores, running from here, all these stresses have a big impact on our temperament. Remember, nafs, temperament, anger. So we're living in times where people are extremely stressed. And when you feel stressed, you become frustrated, you become anxious, and what happens? Your mood changes. How many of us, once upon a time, had a very good sense of humor? Right? How many people, once upon a time, used to have a laugh with the family members, with the lads? They could have a giggle, they could do something funny, they could have late nights, they could, pull each other's legs in a cheerful way without harming each other. How many of us had a good sense of humor once upon a time? How many of us once upon a time were those individuals where people used to come and sit with us because they enjoyed our company? How many of us once upon a time were very sort of, witty? We didn't hurt people. We used to be smiling and jolly. We used to have, sort of good humor. But then came marriage. And then after marriage, the humor went. And this person's humor once upon a time, jolly, and now, once upon a time, well, now, and then they lived, sadly, ever after. The humor went. The humor was severely affected. The mood changed. And now we have to understand, it is not because of marriage. Your humor has not been lost because of your marriage. Our teachers say in their decades of experience, what they found was people's humor changes after marriage because of the stress and anxiety and economic worry that they have. Because they automatically begin to assume what? I was one, now I'm two, soon I'm going to be three, four, five. How am I going to afford all of this? And then they just start working. Stressed about finances. Then there's, again, lifestyle choices. You start buying things which you can't afford, right? So lots of things follow. So marriage itself actually completes a person. Half of your iman is completed after marriage. But the issue is we're not following the marriage principles in order for it to complete half our iman. We are following principles that are not part of our worldview. And what is our worldview? That Allah that feeds the birds in the sky and all the creatures on earth and the fish in the sea, that Allah who is Razik is also my Razik. That Allah who was my Razik before marriage is also the Razik of my wife and my kids after marriage. So because of our weakness of Iman, we think that we now have to work day and night to earn more money, to satisfy the needs and desires of my family. So again, here, lifestyle, right? This is something we need to think about. What is my lifestyle? So once upon a time, I had humor. Then I got married and my worldview changed. And I thought that I am the provider for my family and my wife and kids, and I need to earn all this money. You do not need to earn all this money. We need to live a more simple life, okay? And this person that you're married to, you complement and complete each other. But the reason why you're not able to do this is because one of the reasons is overly occupied, constantly stressed out. Okay. This makes a person angry. This person makes a person frustrated. So this is a cause of anger. What's the solution to this? Correct our iman. Allah is Razik. Focus on your wants and needs. Look at your lifestyle. You don't have to have a takeout every single day or even every single week. The takeouts can go. You don't need to have designer clothing. You don't need to have that amazing car. You don't have to go on holiday abroad to enjoy yourself. Right? Invest in your home, not in your house. What is a house? A house is simply four walls, some furniture. What is a home? What makes a home? It's the people in the house. It's the temperament of those people in the house. It's the sitting together and having meals together and having those fun times together and having those laughs and sharing stories and idfa' billati hiya ahsan, overlooking each other's mistakes. Right? This is what makes a home. We're so focused on the house. My house is incomplete until I don't have this vase and this frame and this garden and this showpiece and I need new wallpaper. Why? Because I'm comparing myself to what's happening in society. This worldview, these are the side effects of this worldview. Again, go back in the days, our parents didn't have a lot of money. They used to live in back-to-back, maybe terraced houses. Okay, the stories where people didn't have sofas, they used to sit on the floor or they used to sit on second-hand sofas, but the family structure was there. Why? Because they were giving each other time, because their iman was strong, that my Razik is Allah, right? They didn't have that many distractions. They didn't have chicken and chips and Turkouts and this burger shop and that burger shop and this car. It was a very simple life. With a simple life came less worries, less stresses. So then they had a good temperament. They weren't getting angry all the time. So you could enjoy time together, right? So this is the second point. Cause of anger is our busyness, our lifestyle choices. The third issue, the third very big reason of anger, and there's two more after this and we'll end over there. The third reason for our anger is kibr, which is pride, arrogance. And our teachers say that we know of people who can give long lectures on kibr and pride and arrogance, but they themselves don't realize that they are involved in this sin, in this disease themselves. See, the issue is, why has kibr crept up in our society is because we can no longer establish a principle on which we consider ourselves as worthy. Every single insan that was created is worthy. We have been created as ashraful makhluqat. We are the best of creations. So we are better than angels. Right? Insan is better than angels. This is the title that we've been given. The issue is we have based our confidence, our character, our izzat, our self-respect, our status in society on the wrong pedestals. We say that I am important because of the way I speak, because of the number of likes I have on my YouTube channel, because of the car I drive, because of the job and the status and the position I hold, because of the company car, because of the seat that I sit in when I fly in an aeroplane. These are the wrong reasons to consider yourself as important. Because when you consider yourself as important based on these reasons, what happens? Pride comes in. Then you begin looking down on people. And when you look down on people, your attitude towards them changes to the extent if you are educated and you see yourself as important because you're educated, because you went to law school or you went to an Ivy League university or you're earning a certain salary, you will begin to consider your spouse as inferior. You will begin to consider your kids as inferior. You will begin to consider your family members as inferior. This is pride. So there's two elements of pride. You consider yourself as superior, or you consider someone as inferior. Two sides of the same coin. So kibr, pride, gives rise to anger. Now, if you feel yourself as important for the right reasons, it will make you feel accountable. I am important because I am Ashraful Makhlukat. I have been created as the best of creations. By who? By Allah. What does that mean? I am accountable to Allah. I have to return to Allah. I will be questioned on my deeds on the day of judgment. So therefore, these people who are frustrating me and making me angry, I need to be kind to them. Why? Because I am accountable. I am responsible. If I utter a bad word, if I show my facial expressions of anger, then I am going to be questioned on this. So here, knowing your self-worth makes you a humble servant of Allah. It makes you a humble servant of the people you have been made responsible for. And this kibr, if we just work on this, it will really ease the tension. I mean, one of our responsibilities, or one of our imani responsibilities as a Muslim is to protect the dignity and self-respect of the other individual. And you cannot do that if you have kibr in your heart, if you have pride, if you feel yourself as more superior, more knowledgeable, more intellectual, uh, you know, more wealthy than the other person. Just because I'm older gives me superiority over you. I'm sorry, it doesn't. That person is an abd of Allah, and so are you. I will talk to my elders with the same level of respect that I will talk to my youngsters. I will forgive the elders as much as I will forgive the youngsters. There's a famous quote of one of the CEOs, and he says that I greet my janitor with the same level of respect as I greet my CEO. Okay, so kibr, what is the what is the solution to kibr? So we have to reflect on this. Can you remember we made an activity where we made two lists of people? So people who you know get angry very quickly, and people who don't get angry. Okay. The solution to kibr is start spending time with people who are humble, who don't get angry. So refer to your list, start spending more time with them. Meet them, greet them, sit with them, spend time with them, call them over to your house, you visit them, visit their gatherings, spend time with them. There's a hadith where someone came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, Ya Rasulullah, give me some advice. We have lots of these situations where people came and said, Ya Rasulullah, give me one piece of advice. So depending on the individual and the situation, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam then would give that person an advice. So for example, someone would come, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would say to him, stop lying, don't lie. Why? Because Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had the firasat. He had the vision where he could tell the situation of this individual and then he would give them the advice based on their lifestyle, their needs, their issues. And by the way, this firasat is something not reserved just for prophets. Firasat is reserved for every single mu'min. So it's reserved for me and you if we become mu'mins. So anyway, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam comes, someone comes to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and says, Ya Rasulullah, give me some advice. Give me one piece of advice. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam replies and says, leave anger, stop getting angry, give it up. And he sends him away. So what happens over here? This person leaves, and the story's gone out of my mind. I think, yes, what happens is Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam just tells him to leave anger, give up anger, that's it. Why? Because anger is the root cause of so many other diseases. Anger is the cause of so many other issues. This is such a big issue that people have, we don't realize. What does anger cause? Let's reflect. Anger, it's pride. Breaks relationships. Bullying is related to anger. Harming other people physically, psychologically, emotionally, linked to anger. Okay? You're unable to say sorry. It's anger and pride. Okay? You're unable to forgive. You're boastful. You belittle other people. Okay? You find it hard to trust people. People don't trust you. Trust breaks in society. No one is coming and speaking to you. There's no communication, no relationships. There's tyranny. What's this? All this is linked to anger. It's linked to pride. So this is why Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, just give up anger, that's it. Because he knew that this anger will solve so many issues in this person's life that you cannot even imagine. So just give up anger. And one of the solutions, like I said, was go sit with the people in the activity that you made, the list of the people that you made who don't get angry. Spend time with them. This is called suhbat. Why were the Sahaba the Sahaba? Because they spent time in the suhbat of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And there's also another story, Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanwi. So someone came to him and said, I have an issue with anger. What shall I do? So he was asked, which part of the village are you from? He said, I'm from here. So do you know this individual over there? He said, yes. So Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanwi said, go and spend time with that person. So this individual went, he spent some time with him, probably went and sat with him, did salam, kalam, etc. Okay. Then after some time he came back and he said to Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanwi Sahab, he said, look, I've been spending time with this guy. He's not told me anything about anger. He's not given me any advice about anger. Like he was supposed to lecture me, give me some hadith, give me some advice, do a some psychometric tests and assessments. He didn't do anything. So the Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanwi asked him, the time that you've been spending with him and you've come back, have you noticed that your anger has reduced? He said, no, definitely my anger has reduced. So he said, that's it, that's the cure. When you spend time with people with certain qualities, they naturally rub off to you. What is the very first question that we asked in today's session? What did we say? What are those feelings and emotions or issues that you have with your kids that you don't like? Then, do you have those issues in yourself? And what did we say? Characteristics, behaviors spread. They transmit from you to other people. Similarly, that person's anger management skills or his calmness and his humility was on such a level that was being transmitted into this individual. So the solution to anger, to pride, is spend time with people who are humble, who don't get angry, and you've already made a list. Then we come to the fourth factor. And what is the fourth factor? And this is again a bit sensitive. The fourth cause of anger is becoming very knowledgeable and becoming a master in your field. So becoming a subject matter expert. So what do I mean by this? If, for example, you have become very knowledgeable and you've mastered the art of cooking, you're a really good cook, okay? Or people have rated you on your clean. When we go to this person's house, oof, it's amazing, okay? Or maybe your sewing skills, or maybe your artistic skills, or maybe your recitation, or maybe your driving skills, right? Alhamdulillah, you've been spending time, you perfected it, you went to lots of different courses, you spent a lot of time with people, you had good company, you made lots of dua. Now, the issue here is as your standards increase, as your knowledge increases, your standards increase. And when your standards increase, what happens? You start aiming for perfection. You start aiming for ihsan. This is a good trait to have. But it's a good trait to have when you assess yourself against these standards. The moment you begin to assess others on your standards, that's where things collapse. It's okay to be a perfectionist, but be a perfectionist for yourself. Do not expect, do not rate other people on your level of perfection. Your level of perfection is for you. Go easy on others. Don't immediately adopt a quality control standard on other people. Okay, your child brings a drawing to you or a story. Don't do a post-mortem examination and start ripping it apart and commenting on the grammar and writing between the lines and the size of the letters, capitals, no, short, it doesn't rhyme. Stop doing the post-mortem on other people. They don't have the experience as you. Make dua that Allah gives them the experience. You've only attained this subject matter expertness, if that's even such a word, right? After so many years. Have mercy on the young people. Okay, your biryani is amazing, right? You've just perfected your biryani. Okay, your daughter-in-law comes along. Stop judging your daughter-in-law on the level of biryani that you're cooking. Give them room. So ilm and knowledge and standards becomes a problem when you start assessing and evaluating other people. And when you do this, you become frustrated. That why don't you know? Why can't you make this roti round? It's okay, right? When's the first time you made roti? Was it perfectly round? The first time you made biryani, was it like this? Driving, right? There's people who are very proud of their driving. That I'm such a safe driver, I never speed, I never do this. Now you're sat with someone and you're saying you don't know how to drive. What kind of driving is this? Slow down, stop. And you're sat with other people and I sat with him today, he doesn't know how to drive. He's always, is this, see, you're insulting the person, you're taking out the frustration, and essentially it's an element of anger, right? You're not happy with the person's performance, right? Learn to forgive. Learn to forgive. Your son-in-law is not your husband. Your daughter-in-law is not your daughter. Right? Your son-in-law is not your son. Your son-in-law is someone different. Your daughter-in-law is someone different. Give them space. Give them room for error. They might not come on time. It's okay. Were you never late? Alhamdulillah, you have now got the ilm and the knowledge of wal asr, innal insana lafi khusr. So you understand the importance of time. Allah has given you this knowledge, do shukr on this, but do not judge and evaluate other people on this. So this is the fourth factor, the fourth cause of anger and breaking down relationships. And the last one is expectations and demands. We have too many expectations and demands from especially our kids. We have to lower our standards. We need to create and elevate our tolerance for mess. Elevate your tolerance for mistakes. Elevate your tolerance for anything that can possibly go wrong. You wake up in the morning, the house is not tidy. It's fine. It's no big issue. It can be tidied. Our expectations, our demands, coming from our ilm, coming from our own experiences, keep the expectations and demands on yourself. Lower your expectations for other people. Improve your tolerance levels for mess, for mistakes. This will reduce your levels of anger. This will reduce your levels of frustration. And with this then comes a better parenting strategy, a better parenting style. Okay, lots of mothers, I think we have here. You know, some people have extreme exhaustion because of like a new mother, right? So where is the exhaustion coming from? If you are a new mother, your focus is your child. It shouldn't be the kitchen. It shouldn't be the cleaning of the house. It shouldn't be entertaining guests, etc. But on the flip side, you need to have a family structure around you where we are giving each other time. Are you setting yourself high expectations that I need to be looking after my baby, and my room has to be tidy, and my washroom has to be spick and span, and I need to have done this, and I need to attend all the appointments, and I need to see all my friends, and I need to catch up on Netflix, and I need to catch up on all the WhatsApp messages, etc., etc., etc. Okay? Calm down. Make your life easy, make your life simple, and this will, inshallah, reduce the causes of us becoming angry. And if we're less angry, then we can see where we are going. So in summary, our teachers, the way they concluded was, see, there's 4 types of people. One is people who get angry quickly, but then it takes them a long time to come out of that anger. It takes them a long time to let go. That's the first type of people. The second type of people are those who they get angry quickly and then they forget quickly. The third type of people are those people who take time to get angry, so it's hard to make them angry, okay? But once they're angry, it's very hard for them to let go. And finally, there's those people who it takes them a long time to get angry. And if they do get angry, they let go of it very quickly. So we make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us from the 4th category of people, where we do not get angry quickly, we can let go quickly, and we have time to reflect, we have time to think and go through all these activities, have those fruitful discussions with our spouses, but remember, point the gun at yourself. Okay, and as a further activity is, inshallah, maybe we can do this on another session, is when we talk about temperament in general. So today, remember, we said there was nafs, temperament, and anger. Today we focused on anger. We can, inshallah, in the upcoming maybe weeks, we can discuss temperament at large. So how do we work on our temperament? So one of the things maybe I can leave you with is create a temperament log. So every evening before you go to bed, write down what situation is making me angry and frustrated, and then run through the activity. Discuss, understand, why did I get angry? Am I supposed to get angry? If I'm supposed to get angry, on what principle should I get angry? How angry should I get? And even if I am getting angry, should I display it or not? And if I am going to display it, in what manner should I display it? When should I display it? Should I display it now or should I wait 2 weeks? And we all know this. After 2, 3 weeks has passed, you have forgotten, okay? Or your anger subdues, and then it's much easier to have a conversation and discuss with the individual, okay? So a temperament log here is extremely, extremely important. So we end over there. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to practice on what has been shared today. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect others from our anger. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really give us the ability to bring ourselves, to hold ourselves accountable before we are held accountable in front of Allah, and before we upset people and we miss the opportunity to ask for forgiveness. So Jazakallahu khair wa ahsan al-jaza.